Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I have my fantastic co-host right here.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Jamil, Eddie Nicholas, and welcome to the Freedom Radio Hour, 91.6 FM, the heartbeat of Sudan. Boom, boom, boom,
Exactly.
boom. And DWildMusicRadio.com. So we're here, we're there, we're everywhere. What's up, my brother? Tell the folks in on what we're going to talk about today and what we do here at Freedom Radio.
Well, I'm so delighted to see you again, my brother.
You know, I'm in one of my rarity moods.
Oh, I love it. Well, today we're not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music business news and trends from around the globe. You're tuned into the Freedom Radio Hour, and let's get right into it. I wanted to talk about, like in previous episodes, you know, this is that time of year where we'll start to see more reporting, because now all of the data's come in fully for last year. So you're going to see, not just at the top of this new year, but throughout the course of the quarter, etc., you'll still see reporting from the year prior. Because as we said, it takes a while for all of that data to fully come in. What data are we referring to? Usage, stream counts, people's download material, all of that information still gets comes
Faded
in
to somewhere.
Yes, but it comes in on a trickling, like sort of an incremental basis for at least through the first quarter of the following year, and then they could do a more robust type of reporting. Well, this industry group that we've talked about before, IFPI, in previous episodes, we talked about how their report was very eye-opening about the fact that despite streaming being here and how popular it is, piracy still exists. Again, we were talking about once before how streaming was supposed to be, or was rather marketed as this
End
ability.
all.
Yes, it was going to be the end all
all.
to
To
piracy.
be all to
Yes.
piracy.
Yeah, exactly. Which we learn, especially now in these newest reports, that piracy is still here. Of the people that they surveyed in over 13 countries, they said that they still 19% still downloaded illegally material in the last 6 months.
And you know, and the crazy thing is, in some of them are probably not even using the new technology. They're probably still using the same old technology to download material that they've been downloading.
It's so funny how sometimes you could just be so in sync with me, because it really gets us down this road. Because the other thing that IFPI said is, yes, they talked about how piracy is still here, how their users are still engaging in what's called stream ripping. You know, there's ability now that if you go on YouTube or any streaming site and you listen to the music all the way through, or that video, you can capture that and save it on your desktop in a very easy way, right? So these surveys have come back to say that people are still doing that stream ripping, right? But beyond that, IFPI did say, and this is the latest report, that yes, we've highlighted our existing problems with piracy, but the upside is that the industry has enjoyed the kind of growth that they haven't seen in over 20 years.
Now, let's be clear. Are we talking about the industry, or are we talking about those people that are the investors, have the investors?
Well, they're talking about things like total recorded music revenues are up 6% to now they're closer to 16 billion in earnings. Okay. They're talking about things like how streaming has brought in over 60% more money than it had before, and the projections are that it will continue to go up. But
that's what I was waiting for. What's the BUT?
the BUT is that we always say that what goes up must come down. And it seems as though the reports that are coming out, while they're very optimistic, there is a hint of trepidation, and even your biggest CEOs. Case in point, a gentleman by the name of Francis Moore. Francis Moore is the CEO of IFPI, that industry group. And while he was announcing...
A multi-millionaire.
Yes. As he was announcing these big leaps and jumps in terms of the revenue that's come in for music industry folks, he also was quite shy and coy. And so they were asking him, why are you being so trepidatious or shy about this good news? Because he said there is this huge issue with value gap that we're not addressing. Again, for those that don't remember, value gap, we're talking about YouTube. YouTube has billions of users a month, and they pay out a fraction of a penny per stream to the artist where the music belongs to, okay? And so the value gap is the amount of money that they make, YouTube, versus how much they pay out to the artist. So YouTube, on the backs of the music businesses, have made a lot of money in the form of advertising and subscription money. And what they're doing with that is saying, hey, we paid out a lot to you guys, artists and labels, so get off our backs. But many of us have noticed that because they have billions of users per month, the amount that they actually pay per user is tiny as compared to, say, Spotify and Apple, who pay a bigger rate per user than YouTube. You see?
And hence the lawsuits from artists like Pharrell and other individuals pulling their music from YouTube because of the payouts of streaming venues like that and other venues that pay like that. You know, there's no money. When you are an artist that when you at one time were earning $3 million plus for your songs being played on the air or put out here and there, for that to dwindle down to a couple of thousand per millions of streams is ludicrous.
Well, it also made me think about value gap and how that's not a new problem. We say this word like we never heard of value gap before, but when you
Everything
think about
has value as well, how we devalue.
Yes, and how there is this this gap in inequality, if you will. Let's take a break, but I want to talk about sort of the first instances of this problem about value gap and why this month is very important and an anniversary around this very issue. When you stay tuned, come back.
91.6 FM, Heartbeat of Sudan.
Freedom Radio Hour.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people, and welcome back to 91.6 FM. I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Nicholas, and I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, the one and only Mr.
Adam Cruz. And you're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your number one source for music business news and trends from around the globe. You're tuned in at Capital Radio 91.6 FM and on the web at dwildmusicradio.com. Before we broke, we were talking about this issue regarding value gap and why it's important to realize what's happening with that even today in this month. Okay, so a quick thing before we broke, we were talking about value gap being this issue where YouTube, having its billions of users, pays a fraction of a penny per stream to labels and rights owners, right? But artists and such realize, well, because you have so many users, that actually equates to a little bit per user on how much you pay versus, say, Spotify and Apple that pay a bigger amount. So they're saying, wait, hold up, YouTube. While you make all these millions and billions of dollars, where's our fair share?
Yeah, because you know, I sit back and I'm gonna ask, well, how many people have to subscribe or stream in order for me to make a penny?
Right, and we're already we're at the losing end of the equation when we have to depend on something else to happen before we get paid, because you're still building your business, you know, Apple and such. Speaking of which, it got me thinking about the sort of, I argue, to be the first examples that we saw where this value gap existed. We can talk about YouTube and streaming and all that now today, but back even 14 years ago, we were dealing with value gap. We just didn't know what it was. What do I mean? Well, you see, as it turns out, in around the 2001-2002 time, Mr. Steve Jobs, who was the head of Apple, the brains for Apple for the longest time, may he rest in peace, had this vision for this one-stop shop, a very easy peasy way to buy content, music, online. And so he, knowing that he wanted to sell his gadgets that could house the music, he said, let's create a thing called the iTunes Store and make it so that all the music is available at the flick of a switch, boom, and it could go right on this device, which we own and we will sell. And he was the one, he and his team created this whole model around 99 cents per download, okay? So you know why his intention was to sell the device and make it easy.
Not the music.
Not the music. That's not his business, right?
Hence the music is cheap, so if you can purchase the music cheap.
The first instances of our value gap problem. On the backs of the music, guys, when you needed it, Apple, you had to come to us music guys. What I realized is April 28th is the launch date, is the very first day that iTunes launched their iTunes Store. Today or this week or this month is the 14th anniversary of the launch of the iTunes Store with, I just said, this 99 cent per download model. So Steve Jobs, knowing he's got to get these labels on board, steps to Warner Music and Universal, the first two labels, two of the biggest, even still today. And he says to them, hey guys, I need you guys to agree to sell your music per download, per track. And the labels balked because...
Hence the buy-in.
Yes, they had, exactly. He had to get the buy-in sorted. And so the labels balked at that because they thought it would spell the death of the album.
Which it did.
Which it did, right? It did. So why do we say that? Because the playlist is king, not the album, when you think about it in that context. Anyway, so Steve Jobs says, all right, let's squash those fears, because let's answer a couple of things. Well, number one, at the time, we, Apple, don't have that big of a market share. We're at single digits. The system you have to access through our software and only through our store, and it's available only to Macs at the time.
At the time.
So the labels go, oh, well, maybe. Can you do two more things, though? And those two more things, we call them today Digital Rights Management, DRM. These two things they wanted restrictions on. When you go to the store, you can only be authorized on 3 computers, because they knew people had more than one computer in their household by this point. They knew that they also had maybe a work computer, so that if they were going to sign into this iTunes store, they were only authorized up to 3 computers. That was restriction number 1. Restriction number 2 was we needed so that if you burn it on CD, the music, you could only do it up to 7 times. To which Steve Jobs then went, okay. Foolery. So they went ahead and they created this deal. They boilerplated it. We talked about this before. That means taking this agreement, this set of terms, copying and pasting, and offering that to EMI, BMG at the time. So once he got them all in, he launched on April 28, 2003 with 200,000 songs.
But you know what really amazes me is when we talk about this, where's ASCAP? Where is BMI? Where is CSAC in all of this negotiation? Because those are the collectors of our royalties.
Right.
And when you sit here and you figure how in the world could they have co-signed off of something that cheapened?
Well, because you do realize that performance rights organizations don't own record labels. Record labels don't own performance rights organizations. They just need each other.
Well, and that needs somebody...
Well, Steve Jobs, knowing that he's going to the source of the music, so it's always clear in my head what Apple and Steve Jobs are up to. It's not confusing.
You know, and again, when we get to the source, you said the source are the artists, and again, that source is always being cheated and not compensated. But you know what? We'll be right back. 91.6 FM, and we're going to tie it up, and we're going to bring you some more great things.
Yes, especially because I think you make a good point around how you quick to cheapen the music, but in a pinch, Steve Jobs and them needed the labels. Let's take a break. We'll talk about that very thing when we come back on the Freedom Radio Hour.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio, 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and on the web at dwobmusicradio.com. I'm here with my fantastic partner, Mr. Eddie Nicholas, and I'm Adam Cruz, and you're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour, where your number one source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. All right, before we broke, we were talking about some very interesting history around Apple. You see, right around this time of month is the anniversary, the 14th anniversary, that is, of the launch of the iTunes Music Store that has become very, very popular ever since. Apple and Steve Jobs had the vision to create a pathway, a connection between media and their device. And they were very successful in selling that device because they used music. And so over time, they were able to springboard from there to say, let's offer TV, podcasts, movies, books, audiobooks, etc.
A whole entertainment experience in a box.
But who did he start with? Who did Apple start with? Music. So it's so funny how when they launched, music was like a thing. They flew out the teams to California. They had a whole presentation to get this buy-in, right? Once they have it, they're like, and they cheapen it and cheapen it and cheapen it. And now today in 2017, 2018, you have a re-emergence of this very problem. But now it's taken up a different shape or a different form. I argue a recent article that Eddie's about to share with us with a company, Netflix, that's mostly about movie and TV. What's happened with them?
Well, Netflix, which has a subscribership in the millions.
Yes.
Nowhere near YouTube, but Netflix is paid.
Yes.
And all paid. And with that being so, they had projected 7.1 million growth from last quarter.
Huh.
But they didn't achieve it.
Say the price again. How much were they saying?
7.1 million.
They were projecting earnings of 7.1 million, and then.
But it ended up only being 6.7.
So how are they going to make up this $400,000?
Well, that's the quandary.
Okay.
Because as we know, Netflix basically deals with movie series and I guess television series and all of that, where you dial it up, you pay for it. You used to have to get it in the mail, but now you can just go online and get it.
Right.
They're saying due to low subscribership, even though they're projected in the millions and their earnings were better from previous last year, they still did not make that 7.1 million that they promised to. Again, the hint word, investors.
Exactly. So it launched me. Thank you for that information. So again, Netflix having to answer to their investors and Wall Street saying, look, we're going to project 7.1 million and they only made 6.7. So they have to account for this $400,000 loss. Does that mean heads will roll and somebody will lose their job? Perhaps. But I argue this. I think just like Steve Jobs and Apple did, where they in a quandary stepped to the labels because they knew they needed music to sell their devices. I argue that Netflix is going to go down the route of music. You see, Netflix, while they offer only pay service and they only offer movie and TV content, I think that they realize that there's a missing link here, which is music.
And and since music is so cheap, why not add that? Because the music will bring the people to the site. And again, hey, they may say we could offer the music for free.
Right. And also, that they have been dealing with this push-pull with their customer base, who have been fearful that they're going to institute ads. You see, the other thing that Netflix doesn't do is ads. So there's been rumors over time to say, oh, you guys are going to start offering ads, which means you got to sit through a commercial before your show or your film begins. And so far, they've said, no, we're not going to do that. But they're losing billions of dollars annually, they know, Netflix, by not offering advertising like that. So I say that they're going to try music on for size and see if that helps this $400,000 quandary. Recently, Jennifer Hudson has launched a new show with comedian Adam Sandler.
Okay.
And the show is called Sandy Wexler. It's a Netflix-only show. And that's the move now. Comedians up and down Netflix all have shows that are only available.
And if you want to see them, you got to pay for it.
There's no free, exactly. So Jennifer Hudson, who acts as well as sings, of course, has a song to go with the show. But the interesting thing is that she's launching it right in time with the show's premiere. The song is called Hey DJ, and she has a music video. Now, she's already launched the video in time with the show premiering, right? So that leads me to think I wouldn't be surprised if the music video ends up on Netflix by watching this show. So maybe not an advertisement, but you're going to sit through a music video.
Well, these music videos are now advertisements. Look at the Kit Kat commercial with my boy that just won the Grammys. I can't think of his name.
Chance the Rapper?
Thank you. Chance the Rapper. That's a commercial.
And I'm telling you that all of a sudden they'll be like, and that $400,000 gap that they had to fill, they'll fill it.
And as you notice, speaking of commercials, car advertisements.
Yes.
They have a lot of our dance music up in it, if you pay close attention. So music has always been integral as part of advertisement because you first get captured by the ear. And so once you're captured by the ear, then you're going to turn around and say, well, boom. And that's how they get you. So I would not doubt if Netflix and a whole host of others that are trying to follow that pattern, because they too want to be that mega YouTube.
Exactly. And I argue that one of the biggest things that we can learn from all of this is that any of these companies that seem to stick to their guns about a certain model or not, they will switch on you like a dime, depending on the fiscal, the direness of the situation. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but what we're trying to say in this episode is that we're going to be paying closer attention to streaming services that are not just Spotify, Apple, Tidal, all the ones we know, because you're going to see music streaming become available, I argue, on Netflix, Hulu, all of that. Because look at Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, you still can download music because, Amazon started as a music streaming thing. So,
and now they're making movies.
yes, they are making movies. So that's all the time we have today. But I need you guys to pay close attention, especially if you're a songwriter, a producer, performer, anybody who's an enthusiast around niche market music or any kind of music. The Freedom Radio Hour is the show for you. Thanks for tuning in. Make it your business to check out EddieNicholas.com as well as DJAdamCruz.com for our respective fantastic music. And leave a comment under everything we're posting at FreedomRadioHour.com. And let us know what you think, because we want to hear from you.
That's right. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend and a great week ahead. See you next time.